Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great weekend. Today is November 7th, 2020, and we have a real treat for you tonight. Today, we have Al Banuelos, as well as Larry Hansen. And we are excited to bring back a legend and learn a little bit more about him. Al has been a breeder, a trainer, competitor, decoy, a judge, mentor, and breed advocate for our breed and protection, the American Bulldog and protection sports. And of course, Larry, she was the founder of the Southern Cal All Breed Ringers Club. She's titled dogs in French Ring, Mondial Ring, PSA, Schutzhund, and as well as worked with many unorthodox breeds from pit bulls to schnauzers to Yog terriers, band dogs, and even Malinois. What most people don't know is that tonight is the first night that I am actually speaking with Al. I've done all this through Marcel from NorCal and also Larry. And so I appreciate that. Also, what people don't know is that Larry, in leading up to this, Larry was like, Al is such a huge figure in the American Bulldog world, but beyond that, in all breeds and protection sports. And she's like, I just want him to get the recognition that he deserves. And so if you'd like to interview me, I would love to do it at a later time, and we can figure that out. And so tonight, Al doesn't even know this, but this is about Al tonight. And Larry's going to be there to add in where she feels necessary, and to also just add to this wonderful live event that we have. First of all, I'd like to start off with Al and say thank you once again. And we'll go ahead and get started here. And just take us back to about your life growing up.
Basically, I grew up here in Southern California, basically West LA area, and just started with dogs pretty much when I was in the mid-20s, later in the 30s or whatever. When I was 30 years old, I started with a friend of mine that used to train at Edwards Air Force Base as a canine handler, and that's how I got started with just working with dogs. Just he would let me go out there and work his dogs and police dogs, and just got a big interest in working dogs in general.
So at this time, did you own dogs yourself, or you were just working other people's dogs?
I had a German Shepherd. Yes, I had a German Shepherd that I started with, and it wasn't working out. And I started looking at the American Bulldogs. I actually looked at that one book. What was it? God, it was an old. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was.
Was it Carl Simnek's World of Fighting Dogs?
Yes, World of Fighting Dogs, and that's where I seen all the bulldogs in that and basically in that book, and that's what drew my interest. That Incredible Hulk bulldog. I was like, I need to have a dog like that. I definitely drew my attention with that bulldog.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite questions to ask is how you learned about the breed and through what platform, because there's the book by Carl Simnek, there's Dog World, there's just the internet, and it really just tells you about the time when you got involved. And that's great.
Dog World was a big thing. I mean, you had all the breeders coming in and advertising. You had painters dogs in there, and then you had the Johnson lines in there. So that kind of, I was like, okay, I like the Johnsons, but they're a little big on the big side for a working dog. And of course, the painter dogs always had that nice fit, athletic look, basically that I wanted more.
Absolutely. In that book as well, a couple of weeks back, we went through with David Levitt and did an interview with him, and another great one. And tonight, I know that this is going to be absolutely amazing. And so thanks again. So you were training dogs. That first German Shepherd you had, did you do anything with it as far as training and trialing?
No, what happened was he was just an American bred German Shepherd, and my friend at the Edwards Air Force Base tried to do something with them, tried to get him to do some bite work, and the dog just didn't have it. And that's when I was like, okay, I think I need to get a new dog. And I started seeing in the magazine in Dog World, and I seen Kyle Sims basically in Temecula, and I ended up calling him and went down to his place and I looked at his dogs, and kind of it took me a little bit to get a dog. I ended up getting a dog, a female, from him, and it took me about four to 6 months until I started working with her, and finally she just didn't have the drive and just kind of faded out with her, and I ended up getting a dog named Terminator. And
Absolutely. Now, when you got your first dog from Kyle Sims, did you get it as like an 8-week-old puppy? Was she,
yeah,
you did? Okay.
yeah, I pretty much got it. I think it was like 8-10 weeks old. I don't remember. It was a
Any
little.
any specific testing you did at that time?
Not necessarily, because I really didn't know too much at that time. And Kyle said, "Well, this one will do some protection work," and that's what I told him. I just wanted a dog that would do some protection work, and we left it at that. And then, of course, once it hit a year old, and I didn't see the drive in the dog, that's when I selected another dog. It's like, it's time to get a new dog, and Kyle had Terminator, and I played with them a little bit, tested them in the kennel, and the dog had some good protection drive, and I ended up buying Terminator from him.
At what point did you meet Larry? Did you know Larry at this time or not?
No, I didn't know Larry. Larry kind of came in a little bit after what I had Pred.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I told her, come on out and then I'll test your dog. And she had a dog named Fraser. And Fraser was a pretty nice dog, really nice.
That it was by chance that we met, because Dr. Annetta Cheek in Virginia was interested in breeding her Schutzhund 3-bitch Baroness to Fraser. It would have been a line breeding.
That's what it was.
But she wanted the dog tested. And she says, there's a guy out there by the name of Banuelos. So from this woman in Virginia, she got us connected.
Right.
And that's how we met.
Right.
And then I was like, wow, this stuff's really cool. So
very cool. I know they're going to love hearing about your dogs and Fraser coming up from the recycler, $250 dog from the recycler. So we got so much great stuff to come with Larry's upcoming live. And getting back to Al here, you got your dog from Kyle Sims. The first one didn't turn out. And I keep telling people over and over, a lot of times you learn about the dog just by who owns it. And, there's so many times people see a list of titles behind a dog, but that doesn't really tell the true story completely. Somebody like me, who's more of an enthusiast, I have a dog that has titles. I don't have many dogs. I'll put more time and effort into a dog, but people like you and Larry, you have to stay excited about a dog. And if a dog doesn't have it, you guys will move on. And I know that's been a problem with Larry trying to find a new prospect, but just who owns the dog is a very important thing to take into account.
Yes, absolutely. It's always the foundation of the dog in general. Just that's the bottom line. And Terminator, basically, he was a dog that Kyle had, and he was just sitting in the kennel, and Kyle did do some little bit of protection work with him. So when I took him, he was probably about 14 months old or something like this, and I started working with him, but he never had much drive for obedience, because there was no ball drive in the dog, and it was just one of those things that he would do it for food, but then it wasn't we weren't doing too much food motivational training back then with dogs, and it was all through either pinch collar. You got to do it with the pinch collar, or even with the ball, but the dog didn't have much ball drive, so I just worked with them. I ended up getting a WH, which was a watchdog title with the dog, and that's as far as I went with them. At that time, when I had Terminator, about a good year later, that's when Kyle ended up doing the breeding with Woody and Jet Bitch, and I started looking at some litters, and he said, I have this litter, and I went up to his place and looked at that litter, and Predator just stuck out. You can just see the attitude in the puppy. He just had real big boldness about him that just kind of, I'm a badass. Don't touch me.
Absolutely.
He kind of, if you grabbed him, he would start growling, which wasn't such a good thing either, because he was just a little too, what would you say?
Full of himself?
Yeah, full of himself, too much. But I ended up selecting him.
What did you think when you went up and met Kyle and you saw Woody? Tell us about Kyle Sims a little bit.
Kyle, basically, he has a lot of knowledge about dogs. Obviously, that's why he's got, and he was telling me that what he liked to breed and what he was looking for, and he just wanted a protection dog. It wasn't, at that time, I wasn't really into doing too much of the sport work. I mean, I already had titled that Terminator dog, but it wasn't to the point where I want to go win a national or anything like that. So I just wanted a good dog that I can work with. And Woody had a lot of protection drive. I mean, you went to his kennel and you had to watch out because he would break out of that kennel. It was to the point where he had me working one day and he just had him running around, and he came up on me and just grabbed me here on the shoulder and just, he crunched down, and Woody had to basically choke him off. Kyle just choked him off like I would have had a shoulder.
Now, did Woody stand out in that regard, or was most of Kyle's yard like that?
No, basically he had Woody and he had Drummond. Now Drummond was a very nice dog, and that's what I wanted. I wanted something like Drummond because he was more athletic. But you can just see the dog just had more physically. He was a better dog for working. So
absolutely, and I think that's what makes the Predator breeding pretty special, is breedings like that. The Bulldog Drummond, Raging Bull, and dogs like Predator, that mix between Johnson and Performance Blood.
Right. Yeah, that's basically it. You got to have a good foundation of both Johnson and Painter or the other stuff out there that Tate's Bulldogs stuff in that respect.
So you went ahead and got Predator. Predator, you worked him to a Schutzhund 3, as well as an IPO 3 and an FH2. I'm not familiar with the FH2. Can you explain that to us?
No, at that time it was only an FH.
Oh, just an FH. Okay.
Yeah, it was an FH. FH is a 3-hour age track, and the dog's got to perform from different terrain changes. So the dog has to show that it crosses a road and then goes back on and does it's a good, I believe it's a good 1,200 pace track with like 4 articles, I believe. It's been
That's
a while.
incredible.
So.
I've never heard of that before. And, was watching and leading up to this and seeing some of Larry's videos. She was talking about, if you own a dog, just do something with it, whether it's something as simple as a canine good citizen, but to have a dog at my house, it has to do something. There's no pets, and that kind of, while we've done some things with dogs, I have a young pup now, and I've signed up for everything. And I've never done nose work, any of this stuff, but I'm excited to go ahead. And hearing that about that FH, that is incredible. 3-hour track. And so now when you got,
I just want to make sure you understood, it's aged for 3 hours before he tracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you would be really tired.
But a 3-hour track is a 3-hour age is still a very long time.
Yes, I can only imagine. And you told us about Predator as a pup and about him just being full of himself. Getting him, what were your plans at that time? Did you know you were going to work in Schutzhund with him?
Yeah, well, that was what my intentions. After working with Terminator, I just kind of like, okay, now I'm getting more and more drawn into the sport, and I wanted something that basically had a better feeling for doing obedience, because Terminator didn't have much ball drive, and that's something that you want. You want something that you want the dog to drive into doing the performance of doing obedience. So you want something where the dog's really, really drawn to you, and the ball usually gets the dog more tuned in. And even with the food is a good tool as well. So
Now, he ended up being the first ever American Bulldog titled in Schutzhund.
then
And
yeah, basically, I titled him in '99, and just me being, I don't think nobody else was really working the American Bulldogs at that time. It was one of those things where nobody even knew it. Everybody thought he was a pit bull. When the judges that seen it was like, "Wow, that's a big pit bull." I go, "Yeah, it ain't a pit bull. It's an American Bulldog." And well, it looks like a boxer crossed with the pit bull. I go, "Yeah, well, I guess you can say that, but that's basically what a lot of people thought with American Bulldogs."
Predator, there's a lot of firsts that went along with Predator. The first to be Schutzhund titled, the first to receive an IPO title, the first to be given an OFA number with a rating of good, and also one of the first to reproduce another Schutzhund 3 titled dog and a male named Ike.
And a female.
And a female.
Yeah, Sophie. Yeah.
Correct. And we're going to go ahead and speak about her in just a little bit. Predator won second place at DVG Nationals as a 1 and 2. In Colorado, he scored a 93, 95, and 100. With this, I know Larry had mentioned that there was a little bit of a rush to get Predator titled. Can you tell us about that?
Well, at that time, it wasn't even Predator. It was Ike and some other dogs. Stevie Duham that had a dog, also an American Bulldog, and they were banning the breeds, all the bull breeds, and that's when Larry also came in to this one trial, and she also had a pit that she wanted a title because they were gonna eliminate all the bull breeds from doing Schutzhund. So
absolutely, and that was back in I can't remember the year that happened with. What was the dog that? So go ahead.
It was a
94?
98.
98. Okay.
Yeah, 98.
And so Predator's best phases. What would you say that he excelled at?
Protection.
And
Yeah, he was a little badass in protection. That was one thing that the dog just loved doing protection. Just excelled in the protection.
Did he always, even as a puppy?
Yeah. He just showed a lot of promise in the protection. The tracking also, actually tracking, he did pretty good in tracking. He scored 100 points in FH, and that's pretty impressive for an FH.
absolutely, he scored 100 points, and there was something about your style of training and tracking. Can you tell us about that?
It's basically, I used a lot of food with the dogs. Just that's where you really get into the dog system, is just using a lot of food. I used to use kibble and mix it in with hot dogs, even meat. So it's just getting the attention of the dog, searching for that food.
And it wasn't a force track, it was all motivational, correct?
It was all motivational. At that time, I didn't know much about force. Yeah. And even with the obedience, there is force retrieves, and he had good ball drive that with the dumbbell, he would do a retrieve with the dumbbell. He'd grab sticks and just walk around with them like nothing, big old logs basically. And it was like, okay, he's gonna retrieve. This dog definitely like to retrieve.
Right. Now, you went to a seminar with Dean Calderon, and there was something about learning motivation track with the ball, not food. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. And that's one good thing about tracking. You teach the dog, you bury the ball inside the ground of course, you're in a dirt area, and you would show the dog the ball. You walk out about 5 paces and dig a hole and let the dog track up to the ball, and they just dig, grab the ball, and that was a reward. So that was a really, really easy process to teach the dog if you had good ball drive with any dog.
Larry, do you have anything to say about Predator?
You know, when I knew Predator, when Al was training Predator and Ike, I was so new to training. All I knew is I wanted a dog like that. I mean, the bond that he and Al had, the obedience, the tracking, the protection, everything was just so, in my eyes, polished and perfect. Again, remembering I was new, but I don't think just because I was new, I think that it was a really, really nice connection that they had. So in all of the phases, so I tried to work hard to mimic the same thing, but I can't tell you any specific things that I remember as far as any struggles that he may have had. And all dogs struggle, all dogs, even the champions. But I don't ever remember witnessing any of that.
How long did it take you to move him through from a Schutzhund 1 to a Schutzhund 3? About how long do you think that was?
It took me, I started basically in, pamphlet 99. It took me about 3 years from going to a 1 to a 3, basically.
And was that your first dog that you took to a Schutzhund 3 level?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Wow. First Bulldog to go to a Schutzhund 3 level, your first dog period to go to a Schutzhund 3 level.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit. I mean, just the different tasks of going through it, and it's one of those things. Now, I had his son Ike, and a couple years later, a year later, I did a breeding with Pred and Big Bay, and that's where I produced Ike. And Ike, this is when this whole thing happened where I don't know if you remember, there was a ban on they were going to stop having people breed pit bulls.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes, BSL.
Yeah. So this all started, and actually DVG jumped the gun, and they were going to say, we're going to ban all the breeds from any bulldog breeds. We're going to ban them, and no more. They can't do the sport anymore. So I ended up getting Ike and titling him. Well, as soon as he turned about 16 months, 17 months old, I put a 1 on him. Then I put the 2 on him, and then I put the 3 on him at the same time I did Predator. So I was at a trial one time doing the 3 with 2 dogs, and I was going out of my mind. It was just too much for me. It was just, and that was my first time, titling dogs. And that's when Larry came in also and started with her dogs, and she titled her dog as well.
So it's your first time through the process with Predator. You come back and do it again with his son Ike. It takes about 3 years to obtain your Schutzhund 3 with Predator. The progression in your training, having been there, done that, how long did it take you to do it with Ike?
Pretty much about 1.5 years or less.
Wow, so that was fast tracked.
Oh, I was going out of my mind because it was just too much. It was just too much.
The good old days when you trained all the time.
Yeah, we were training every day, pretty much. Yeah.
Right. I want to go back to Predator for a second. And he broke his teeth. Tell us a story about that.
That was a stupid mistake on me. I used to let him chase squirrels. He just, for some reason, he'd see a squirrel and he'd just go crazy. One day, he went up a tree about a good 10 feet high, and he stayed up in the tree, and the squirrel obviously disappeared. So I kind of panicked, and I said, I better go get him and bring him down. I went up, and he was easily about a good 10 feet up. I started going up the tree, and next thing I hear is this big old boom, thump. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Well, sure enough, he hit the ground. He had broken on his right side both canines, the bottom and top canine, snapping completely off.
And so with that, was he done at that point, or were you still able to do things with him?
Well, he had a Schutzhund 1 at that time. He didn't have a Schutzhund 2 yet. Yeah, so that he was still young, and I was like, oh. So I've heard of some police dogs being worked on and gotten their canines fixed. So I went to a place up in UC Davis, and they had a good dental program. program up there that did a couple police dogs already that I got referred from this lady named Renee Lancaster. And yeah, they fixed him up and got his, of course he didn't have his teeth anymore. They were halfway there, but
Titanium?
yeah, the titanium, they put titanium teeth inside.
Very
Yes,
expensive.
my dad was in the military, and I always used to love going to the kennel and seeing the military dogs. And I saw several with the implants or the titanium teeth. And yeah, so great story to hear about Predator. Probably hardly anybody has heard that. So thank you for sharing that with us. And also, Predator drew some interest. Did anybody ever try to buy Predator from you?
Yeah, actually, at a year old, I had some people come from Thailand and they were looking for bulldogs and stuff, and they seen them and they were like, "Whoa, we're interested in buying puppies." And I'm like, "Fine." I just had that litter. I just had a litter on the ground. No, he's about a year and a half or so, and that's when I had Ike. I go, "Well, I got this litter on the ground," and they're like, "Well, we're really looking at your older dog. How much do you want for him?" And I was like, "Well, he's not for sale. He's not for sale." And they just kept going back. And I go, I'll sell you this one, that. And I was trying to sell, actually, I was going to sell them Mike. And they're like, "No, we don't want a puppy. We don't want a puppy." Long story short, they ended up offering me 20 G's for him. And I wouldn't sell him.
At that time, that was unheard of, hearing a bulldog go for that amount of money.
Yeah, just something about him that I was like, no, I can't. I just can't.
And so how long did he live?
Unfortunately, he had a short lifespan. He ended up passing away at 5.
Okay.
Right when he turned 5 years old. He ended up getting prostate cancer.
Okay.
So, yeah, he ended
Now,
up passing.
I personally don't know who this guy is. I was reading some stuff, trying to do some research leading up to this, and he goes by Steve the dog trainer, and he said he had trained with you guys for like 6 years and went through, you know, and just you guys blew up the Schutzhund world together. But this is what he had to say about Predator, and I just want to say a few of these. These are all quotes from him. He said that he had a perfect balance of drive and natural talent to work all day, then jump on your bed to sleep with you at night. He said he was a dog like nothing the sport of Schutzhund had ever seen up until that point. He also said that he was different from what the world knew of a bulldog up to that point. So not just Schutzhund, you know, geared towards shepherds, but from a standpoint that he was a bulldog in a Schutzhund world and making a name for himself. And he also said that he was the greatest working AB that ever lived. And he also said that Al like turned the Schutzhund world on its head, you know. And so all those things are very nice, but also with Predator, oh, I lost my train of thought there for a second with Predator. But moving on, you had some go ahead.
Can I interrupt for a minute?
Yes.
Steve, we were just talking about Steve a little bit ago, and Steve's dad used to drive him out to training because he was 15 years old.
He started at 14.
Yeah. He started with Al when he was just a little kid, and came up the ranks as a trainer and a handler and a decoy, and we miss him. You know, hell of a kid. And those are really, really nice things to hear. I'm so glad you said that.
And
This
he didn't mention about his bulldog, did he?
Hammer?
Yeah. And I have listed to talk about him coming up because I think you bred to him, right?
No, we didn't. I didn't breed to him. Did I?
I'm trying to remember. It might not been that you bred to him. I'm trying to think back here to a female, Maisie.
Oh yeah.
Hammer was
belly brothers. Or
that's it. He was the litter mate to Maisie, and he had a Schutzhund 1, correct?
Yeah. Yes, he did. Yeah, he was a fantastic dog. And that dog, you talk about drive, that's the type of drive that you wanted from any dog in general. One time we were at the lake and we had a ball, and I had Ike with me, and I was throwing the ball inside the lake, and Ike would go out and retrieve it and bring it back to me. And Steve threw the ball in. That dog went out, and he couldn't find the damn ball. Next thing you know, we see him looking up, and he looked down, and he went inside the water, and we didn't see him for like, I don't know, it seemed like 10 minutes. Steve had to go out there and grab him and get him out because the dog just had too much. He didn't want to come back in. He was looking for the ball so much. That dog had so much drive. It was amazing. It's amazing with that dog.
Unbelievable. Those comments from Steve were written back in 2010, if I got that correct. And at that time, I don't know if you've talked to him since, but he was like, Al, if you read this, get at me, or reach out to me. And so if not, I'll reach out to Steve and tell him to get at you. And
for sure.
Now, not a popular thing to take an American Bulldog into a German sport, Schutzhund, and do really well. People weren't really happy with that. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, at the time, they weren't happy about just the whole thing with we were talking about them banning the bull breeds because of the pit bull era that this one lady down here, and I believe she was in North Hollywood or something like that, where she let her dog bite a animal control officer. And from then on, I guess it just got to the point where the people in Schutzhund seen that basically that picture, and we got to get all the bull breeds out. And it didn't even go here in California, it went nationwide. So they were going to ban the breed here in the United States.
Yeah, that would definitely cause some problems for sure.
Oh yeah. And there's two organizations here in America. We got the DVG and the USA Schutzhund clubs. Well, the DVG being an all breed organization, they were shutting us down. And that's what really, really kind of, and I belonged to that organization, and it really kind of was big upset for me, because the USA people, Schutzhund USA, never even said anything about this to me, about titling my dogs. And the DVG just said, that's it, you're not going to be able to title your dogs anymore. So I got a little upset about that, not a little, pretty upset about that, because it was like, hey, we haven't done anything wrong, I'm just trying to title my dogs, that's it.
Absolutely. Now, not only with titling your bulldogs in protection dog sports, you also did some breedings. And I just wanted to go down through a few breedings which created some historic bulldogs. And did you have what was your philosophy with breeding dogs?
Just pretty basic. I just wanted something that was athletic, something that was going to be more that type of athletic dog, looking like an athlete, basically a bigger pit bull, but of course a little bit more muscular, and at the same time just with drive. I mean, just the Johnson dogs had the drive, but they would get tired really easy because of the size. And I needed something that did have some athleticness in the dog.
And you were testing dogs not only in sport work, but you were testing them as far as hips is concerned too. So beyond that, you were starting to help test. Was that because of dog sports, or was that just something that you wanted to do yourself?
Yeah, that's because of dog sports. Everybody that I was training with, they're all telling me, do you OFA your dogs? And I'm like, what's that? Well, that's a hip X-ray that we do with all the German Shepherds and the Malinois. And I'm like, really? Well, I don't know any breeders that have. And at that time, it was like, well, I better go in and check in and see my dog's hips are good. And I took in a Terminator, and his hips, he had one fair hip, so he couldn't pass OFA. And that was another thing, because I wanted a dog that I can breed. So anyways, then I got Fred, and I had him checked at 6 months old, and they told me he had normal hips. Well, I went back for his OFA, and he ended up getting the OFA fair. which I was happy. That right there, he passed. And at that time, they didn't even know what an American Bulldog was, the OFA organization, and they marked him down as a Bulldog. And it took about a good 3 months before I got any results, because they thought I was trying to trick them and I was bringing a different breed, right? So I never got the results right away, because people were getting the results like within 4 weeks or so. And finally I ended up getting the results, and they first sent me a paperwork that it was saying that he was a Bulldog, and I called them back. I go, no, he's not a Bulldog, he's an American Bulldog. So they ended up sending me the correct paperwork, and I got the registration as the first American Bulldog to ever be registered or pass an OFA.
What a great story. And you know, going on to talk about some of the breedings you did, you bred Predator to a female named Maisie. Now, Maisie was the littermate sister to Steve's Hammer, which we talked about. She was out of a dog named Buster Brown and Rosebud.
Yeah.
And tell us about Maisie.
Well, Maisie, of course, was Hammer's littermate sister, and Maisie had so much drive, but she was to the point where I wasn't really looking forward to titling a female at that time. So I just wanted something to breed, and that's when I did the breeding with those two, and that produced Nico. And of course, Nico ended up getting the Schutzhund 3, IPO 3. I don't know if he got an FH, but Nico ended up taking this guy Omar Mueller, which is a really good dog trainer. He trains dogs for the movies now, but at that time he was doing work with me, and he ended up taking 5th place at the DVG Nationals. First time ever a Bulldog's ever gone that high at a Schutzhund 3 level.
Yes, and Omar worked with you with Nico, is that correct?
Yes, the whole time, pretty much.
Yes, and so you guys teamed up to help each other prepare and for the DVG Nationals. And yeah, I mean, Nico, what a great dog. IPO 3, Schutzhund 3, AD, as well as an FH as well. And so now there was another breeding that you did, and it was Predator to Red Sonja. Red Sonja was out of Woody and Sheena, the famous Woody Sheena breeding, and it produced the first Schutzhund titled female named Sophie. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
And so with Red Sonja, that was the first Schutzhund titled breeding. Predator was Schutzhund titled. Was Red Sonja Schutzhund titled?
No, she wasn't titled. She was a little bit on the serious side, and I couldn't trust around people.
Right.
And at that time, they were getting to the point where you had to have a BH on the dog, and it was like, all right, I'm just going to breed her and just go with that. She had good drive. Believe me, the drive was not the problem. The problem was she was a little too serious. And I ended up doing the breeding with her, and I didn't do anything basic. I just bred her, and that's what produced Sophie, the Sophie dog that I had. Or
okay.
I ended up selling to this one guy, Joel.
Right. And so Sophie was the first Schutzhund titled female. She was owned by Joel, trained and titled by you. Is that correct?
That's right.
And tell us about Sophie.
Oh, fantastic dog. Real good temperament. Good drive towards protection. Very good. That's what drew me in to training her, because the protection drive was very good. And also she had really good ball drive, and just a sweet dog, just in general. Just the dog that was easy to work with. Just the titling on her. I think she ended up winning for Schutzhund 1. She ended up beating all the ones in the trial.
Yeah, a couple of things that I had heard about her was that she was fun to work, she was compliant, and her best phase was protection.
Yes.
And another breeding that you did was Predator to Brindle Babe. Now, Brindle Babe was out of Bulldog Drummond, and Big Babe, and that breeding produced Ike. Tell us about Brindle Babe.
No, Brindle Babe was out of Incredible Hulk.
Oh, okay.
The Big Babe was a pure Johnson female.
Okay.
Yeah, Big Babe was a straight. Actually, Kyle got Big Babe, and I traded actually when I had Terminator. I traded Big Babe for I had Terminator, and I gave him Terminator, and he gave me Big Babe. And so Big Babe was.
You just keep on talking here. I'm gonna actually pull it up here because I was completely wrong with that. And if we look at Ike here, he's out of Predator and Brindle Babe, and I think that they have it. Big Babe was out of Incredible Hulk and Johnson's Tosh. So yeah, we're able to go ahead and check it out here. And so tell us a little bit about her as a female, though.
Babe.
Yes.
Big Babe. Big Babe was a really, really sweet dog. Very, very, just to protect. She was a protection dog. She was a regular Johnson dog. You didn't come in the backyard with her. Oh yeah, she would let you know if you were coming in. She was charging, but at the same time, she's probably about I would say a good 100-pound female. So I wanted some size. Because Pred was he was 85 pounds. He wasn't a big bulldog. He was more, an athletic, stocky little dog. But at the same time, I wanted to get something a little bit more size. So that's when I asked if Kyle would sell me Big Babe, and well, we ended up doing a trade with what's the name, Terminator and Babe.
Okay. So a couple other things about Babe. She was raised in a kennel, no outside influence. She showed good natural drives. You liked her size, as you said. She's very stable, and you still tested her, and she did well.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, for a female, a lot of people don't title females, and even in the Malinois world, you don't see too many. I don't know about now, but back then, I know a lot of people weren't titling females. But yeah, she just I wanted to see what Pred can produce, and that was the first breeding I did with Pred.
Yes, and so in that breeding, you produce Ike. So Ike also became a Schutzhund 3 dog, IPO 3 dog, and an FH, and sired by Predator, who had those same titles as well. Tell us about Ike.
Ike was a little bit more different than Pred. He wasn't as property defensive. I mean, he still showed his own his basic protection drives, but he had a little bit more drive towards the ball, and even anything you put in front of him, he just wanted to go chase. He had a little bit more action with his obedience. He was a lot easier to work with, I should say. Protection was pretty much almost as close. They were even as far as the bite work. But of course, he never broke his teeth, so that was the biggest advantage for Ike. And of course, I ended up making a 3 with him, and within a year and a half, that dog had a 3. It took me pretty much 3 years with Pred to get the 3 on him.
Now, Ike had a little more play drive. Do you attribute that to anything? Was it just you raised him differently, trained him differently? What would you?
I think probably I knew more at that time from training Pred and Terminator. So I had a little bit more knowledge about what I should be doing. So yeah, it contributed to that for sure.
And Ike was sold to Japan at about 3.5 years old. Tell us how that happened.
Actually, I had Dog World advertisements, and they just called me one day, and we were looking for a dog to go. He was going to a kennel there, and they wanted to start their own program, and that's how they just all fell in with that. Was basically they wanted to get something going in Japan. And
nice. Now, with collecting and freezing semen at that time, is that something you had always planned on, or how did you come about the decision to go ahead and do that?
About frozen semen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had the feeling start collecting them because on Pred's side, you know, and I collected Ike, but it didn't, the results on Ike didn't come out so well at that time. So just with Pred, it worked out really good. So I still have semen from him that I had never used. And who knows, one of these days I probably will, just to find the right female.
You know, it
Get
takes
another American Bulldog to train.
absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I know I would definitely be making a trip out to see Al title another American Bulldog for sure. Now, with collecting semen at that time, it showed a lot of foresight. Obviously, you put a lot of time and effort into these dogs, money, time, effort, and a lot of people weren't necessarily collecting semen at that time, but to have Schutzhund 3 level dogs of their caliber available to today's people and maybe a little more refined bulldog at this point. There's so much, even the people on this group that have dogs coming down from Nico and dogs down from that blood that I just think it would work wonderfully with. And so hopefully we'll find a match for you in a female that meets your expectations and that it can happen. Going down through here, there was also another breeding you did. I think this was a second generation breeding, or it was you bred Clark's RNT, who was out of Rattler and Molly B to your female Sophie that you produced. And in that breeding, you produced a female named Banuelos Moxie Make My Day. Tell us about Moxie.
Moxie, well, of course, I didn't train her. A guy down in San Diego did, Mike Stone, and he ended up he would train with Tom Ritchie, and they were having a good time with her, but she was a little too much for Mike. I think she was just that the point was it was just too much dog for him. And the dog that I bred to Sophie, which was Diesel, that dog was just out of control. Very I'll put it to you this way, it was just too much dog for this gal. Just way too much dog, but too bad she didn't end up getting a 3 because that dog could have gone. I don't know if she did get a 3. I know she got a 1.
You know, I was looking on the pedigree database, and on pedigree database, it has her listed as a BST Schutzhund 3 IPO 3.
Oh, she did get a 3. Okay.
Yeah. And so I can't verify that personally, but I know that's what's listed on the database. So
Okay,
very
yeah.
cool.
I just
And that was a second.
time.
That was a second generation American Bulldog. You produced Sophie, and then you got Moxie, and of course Mike Stone took her on to be another Schutzhund 3 level. So unbelievable. If you follow the transition there, you have Predator, you have onto Sophie, and then onto Moxie as well, and Ike. There's just a lot of Bulldogs that you created and that you bred and put out there that not only work for you, but work for their owners. And whether it's Omar, Mike Stone, just people getting these dogs were able to achieve great things with them that just wasn't heard of at that time.
Yeah, then you had a Tom Ritchie, which he had 2 Bulldogs that ended up titling. He had Brindle.
Correct.
Brindle and Brody.
Yes.
And Brody ended up getting a Schutzhund 3 with him too. Yes.
Absolutely. And then Brindle was actually bred to Nico.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so very, very interesting. Going on to a little bit of training here. People described you as a perfectionist and that you work dogs differently than others. What do you think that meant, that you work dogs differently?
I don't really know. I just work dogs just through their drives. I mean, it was one of those things that you just try to go in deep with the dog and try to find their ways of working with if they like to do, you know, protection. I would work with, even with protection and obedience at the same time, just to make the dog work better. Because sometimes some dogs didn't have the drive to do obedience, so I would make protection with the dogs to make obedience. So it was always trying to make the dog excel.
Absolutely. Larry, can you expound upon that?
Yeah, I was going to say, when I was starting with Al, and Al was my very first mentor in any type of protection sport. One of the things that I think most people who know him will understand is Al's not real big on talking. He's big on action. So when you were training, you didn't always know exactly why you were doing what you were doing. But if you followed instruction, you saw progress. And if you believed in his system, if you believed in Al, you found success. So that might have been part of why some people said he did things a little bit different, and his perfectionism. And one thing he used to say is, especially with our Bulldogs, and I've always held this near and dear, is if you have a Bulldog out there, or if you have an off-breed out there, you have to show that much stronger throughout, because they're going to expect you to fail. They're going to expect you to screw up. So perhaps
That was one of the biggest things when I first got into this breed.
And another
Yes.
thing Al used to say, and I love this, is you never talk about your dog or how good it is. You let other people do that. You show them. You don't talk about, oh, my dog's good in obedience or my dog's good in protection. Let other people say, wow, that dog's good. It's not about talking, it's about showing.
Those are definitely words to live by, for sure. And let the dog speak. And now tell us about who you trained with. Did you guys have a club at that time?
I did belong to a club in Fontana, and I would go to Fontana once a week, but then I did a lot of work down over here in West LA or down here in Long Beach area. Yes. So I'd bounce around, even I would go to Riverside.
Back in the day, Al was a dog training maniac. He would train at Leo Mueller's, he would train at Jean-Claude's, he would train at the Beetle Field here in Long Beach, Victoria Park, sometimes at midnight. Sometimes we would be meeting at midnight. He would train at Long Beach Schutzhund Club as well. And you never knew, you would just wait for that text. And back in those days, it wasn't a phone. In fact, Al Banuelos was the first person who I personally knew that had a cell phone. And it was a big, giant cell phone, but he held it up there. And so we didn't have technology the way it used to be, but we had pagers back then.
Yeah.
And you would wait for that page, Victoria Park, 9 o'clock tonight, or whatever it was. But Al always had a following, not necessarily, he did have his club, and I think Leo was his main club.
Yeah.
But he always had a following. People wanted to know where Al was going to be that particular night.
And Larry, stay here for a few minutes, because I'd like to hear some of your input on some of this stuff too. So who was part of those clubs? Who were you training with at that time?
Well, Dan Guerra was a big part of it at that time. Jeff Schwartz was a part of it at that time. Steve V, I always call him Steve V. Occasionally we'd get Mike Stone, Brian Rice, Ava Cadane.
Yeah. We go to Tom Ritchie's place over in Orange County and train over there a lot as well. So we were.
Now, Larry, again, how about Al as a mentor? There's been a lot of people come up under Al and be trained and learn under Al. Can you tell us anything about Al as a mentor? And then just some of these people who, some of the ones that have been told to me were Mike Ellis, Tom Ritchie, Jose Lopez, the Schutzhund Lopez, not Manstoppers Lopez. But, tell us about that.
To me, Al Banuelos was probably the best mentor I could have happened upon. And that's purely what it was. It was through Annetta, that I met him, and he had a true interest in my dogs, maybe because they were off breeds, but he showed a real love and interest and concern about them pursuing this sport. He was the one who turned me on to bite sports altogether, and he put a lot of time and energy. At some points with my old bitch Rosie, when we were doing a forced retrieve, and that was something that Al did, he was coming to my house 2-3 times a week to work her just on the retrieve. So there are so many things, one-liners that Al has said to me over the years. Some of them I can't remember right off the top of my head, but one of them, of course, is that you don't brag about your dogs, you don't talk about your dogs, you let the dogs speak, and many other things as well. Always a little low key on what he was doing, particularly when he had a good one, when he had one that was. I remember one time, Troy, if you don't mind me just kind of sidetracking a little bit, there was a group of us. It was Steve V, it was Al, Dan, I think Tom, maybe Mike, and we were training. A competition was coming up, and there was talk about, man, that dog's looking good, it might even beat you, Al. And Al says, why does everybody want to beat me? Well, to them, this is the guys, I'm sorry guys, but to the guys, it was about, man, if you could beat Al, you were the shit. You were the shit. And that really said something, but he was out there helping all of us with his dog generally being work last. And being a training director, sometimes that's kind of how it goes, but he was always very giving. And and Al's really cool in the sense that he doesn't say a whole lot, and some people may not get the style of how he trains, but if you just follow the instruction, you see it come together. Yeah. And he's not a big one for at the end of training night saying, oh, well, let's work more on this and let's work more on that. That really matters. You just made it happen. You didn't talk about it. You just did it.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. One thing that I was reading that Steve wrote was that you guys were out training during the LA riots.
Oh, yeah. I remember that day. Actually, that day, I was going to go pick up Steve VC Duham, and I was on the street, Venice Boulevard. And I didn't take the freeway for some reason, and I'm going down on Venice, and I look to the left, and the police department's right there, right? Crossing, going halfway towards Steve's house. And I see a car doing donuts in the middle of the parking lot. I'm like, what the is going on? And I see somebody throwing beer bottles over my head from my car. And I'm like, what? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And they were doing it right next to the police department, okay? And I ended up going to pick up Steve. Steve used to live right where the Coliseum is. And I'm like, what the hell's going on, Steve? He goes, oh, they're rioting, man. They're rioting. And he told me the whole story about what happened with Reginald Denny. And I was like, whoa, but yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah.
You still went training, right?
Huh? We still went training. We still
went. No doubt. That's commitment right there. And so you had talked about, and I just will speed along here because I'm taking up your evening here, but you're talking about the perfect size for a bulldog. How big was Predator, or what is your ideal size for a bulldog?
I would say a good 90 pounds is very solid for a bulldog. Anywhere from 80 to 90 pounds. That would perfect. I mean, I had a dog named God, what was his name? Now I can't. Anyways, I had a dog that was probably pretty close to 95 pounds, and that was a very big athletic dog. I didn't end up training him because he wasn't too clear in the head. Mm-hmm. You remember that dog? The white dog?
Not Kruger. Is it Kruger?
No. Oh God, a Block.
Block. Okay.
Yeah. he was out of that dog, Jake. He came out of Jake, and the
Sure.
lady that called me on him, oh, I got too much dog. She called me when he was about 5 months old, and I guess the dog went after somebody. And I said, well, you just got to do a lot more obedience. The following 2 weeks, she called me. She goes, I'm ready to put the dog down. And I ended up getting this dog. But anyways, he was a 95-pound dog that can jump easily a 6-foot fence. But yeah, I'd say 95 pounds.
Did that happen a lot? People call you and be like, man, these are too much dog.
Yeah, some of the times I did get calls like that.
You know, it seems it's funny. I've heard other people say people want it until they have it. And then once
Yeah.
they get it, they're like, man, this is too much dog.
It's a whole different world. Yeah, I had one guy that bought a puppy off. Actually, it was I think it was a litter mate to Nico, and the guy had already he purchased them, and he was working at a club down up in up by the bay, and the dog ended up biting the damn trash man, and he couldn't do anything. Like, I think he ended up putting the dog down and he was telling me, oh, I'm going to title this dog this and this and this, and I told him just how much drive these dogs had, but some people just don't realize how much dogs they have.
Hey,
When you're
Troy,
Go ahead. Yeah.
if I can intervene for just a second, lately, the last few years, Al has kind of become known as the Doberman man.
Oh,
He's been training a lot of Dobermans, and boy, is that a difference from the American Bulldogs.
Yeah, it's a whole different breed.
Whole different breed.
It's you
But it
can't compare.
expands your knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's just another breed that you have to dig in deep. But I rather train a bulldog any day than
you know, you possess so much knowledge and you found what works for so many different breeds. I mean, you truly can train anything. And that's one thing that just speaks volumes about you as a trainer. You know, another thing that people mention, that titling under you as a judge or a decoy meant something. And it meant something. They said you could go out with other judges the night before and have drinks. You could go out with decoys the night before and have drinks, and you might get some benefits. But Al was going to truly test your dog's character. And when you titled under Al, it meant something.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the dog. I wasn't looking at the person. That's the bottom line. It's all about you're there for the dog. And that's the way I see everything with the breed. And
we used Al a couple times for the Working Pit Bull Terrier Club of America, which is a member club of the American Working Dog Federation, as well as the American Bulldogs too. And we've used him for protection, tracking. I don't know if we've used you for obedience, but that is one. Al is one person that all across the United States, they appreciate and respect the integrity of his knowledge on the different phases of the sports. And they know he's not giving any favors.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, when you're looking at a pup, Al, what is it that you want to see? How do you select a pup for training?
Basically, of course, the temperament's always the first thing. I want to see what the dog has for his temper, as far as if he's outgoing, he's not afraid of anything, objects, noises, and of course the drive. I look at the drive of the puppy always.
Hey, Troy, do you mind if I ask on top of that question to Al? There was quite a phase where people didn't want people to touch their dogs. Right. They wanted their dog to be a little bit suspect of others. How do you feel about that now? Do you want a dog that's socially acceptable, or do you care if the dog's a little bit sharp?
Obviously, I care if the dog has a little bit more outgoing temperament.
You prefer?
Yeah, because you always have to watch out for that dog. It comes down to the point where he might bite somebody for real, and that's your ass. So
absolutely. And do you think those dogs that are a little more vigilant, a little more alert, do you think that's due to like nerves in a sense, maybe having a little?
Yeah, nerves. It's absolutely nerves. I mean, it's genetics. I've had shepherds that you couldn't come a foot in front of me because I'd always have to keep a watch on him, or he was going to bite somebody. And I put a 3 on one dog, great dog, but you couldn't approach him. And even other dogs was another thing too. He was dog aggressive, and it was just always, you're on your nerves, you know, about watch out, watch out, watch out. So,
You know, Troy, back in the old days of when I was doing French ring, a lot of people didn't want other people touching their dogs because they wanted them to just be with their owner. The owner was the only thing that mattered. No, you can't touch my dog. No, you can't socialize with them. But through the years, they seem to have changed as well too. And I possibly because of liability, probably a big part of it. But I think also as we age, we get a little more, you know, we don't want to always be on edge. Anytime you have a protection dog, you always are a little bit anyway. But so, yeah, that was just kind of interesting to hear from the Bulldog standpoint as well.
of all these years that I've had these dogs, I've only used my dog one time.
For real?
For real.
Tell us about that. Tell us.
I was coming back from actually from Fontana, which is an hour and a half away or so. Anyways, it was already around close to 1 o'clock, midnight or AM. And I drive up through my driveway and I see a guy running across and going to the back. I'm like, am I really seeing this? This is not happening. Anyways, I start pounding on the door and I say, hey, I tell one of my sisters, hey, call the cops. There's a guy out here and just call the cops. So I tell him, you know what? The cops are coming, come on out. What are you doing? And he wouldn't come out. So I said, all right, forget this. I went and got Terminator. This is when I barely started in the sport. I got Terminator. And I go, hey, I know you're back there. Show yourself. And he wouldn't. So he came. We're in between the long driveway, and there's a fence right in between the cars. And the guy started squeezing himself in between the fence and the car. I'm like, this son of a. I'm like, all right. So he gets on top of the fence, and there's a water heater, and he climbs up on top of the water heater, and I'm like, okay, you ain't going nowhere. So I reach out to grab him, and he kicks me in the head. I'm like, oh, this son of a. So anyways, I reach out and grab him. I pull him off the water heater, and I had the dog already on a leash. I let the leash go, and the guy slips out of his jacket because I have him on I grabbed him by the jacket, and that's when I pulled him off the water heater. And he slips out of his jacket and runs towards the street. Well, my dog sees this, and he goes after him. And he makes a left turn. Well, my dog makes a left turn down the sidewalk. And all of a sudden I hear this, ah! The dog's on his side, hanging onto him. And he's spinning in circles. And he finally got the dog off of him. At that time, I was running towards him, and I tackled the guy down. And Terminator he lets go on the side, and he ends up biting him in the leg. And actually a canine police department or canine cop came in, and I told my dog to let him go, and I had him on a dog down, and he goes, if that dog didn't get you, my dog's going to get you. And he said, it's too late. My dog already grabbed him. And anyways, it was pretty much a pretty interesting night.
That's great. I'm always curious, and I'm always wanting to hear about real world experiences. And thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm sure there's not going to be very many that have heard that before. So thank you again for sharing that. You've been very, very lucky to have worked some great dogs. One of the dogs that I've heard that you liked was a dog named Lil. You have anything to say about her?
Yeah, Lil really caught my eye as far as Bulldogs. After I didn't have Predator anymore at that time, and I had a Malinois. But anyways, Lil had something about her that she had so much drive for obedience. The tracking and the protection was phenomenal. She's out of a dog named Turbo, Salone's Turbo. And oh my God, that dog, that was probably one of the best Bulldogs I've ever seen. Even from my Bulldogs, that dog had tons of drive. It had power, and she was a 90-pound dog. a female.
Mhm.
She was not a small dog, and every time either Tom Ritchie would catch her or this other guy, Brian Rice, that would catch her, and they all didn't want to catch her because she just came too damn hard. Well, she got entered at a regionals down over in Palmdale, and on the long bite, completely tore the sleeve off the guy, and the guy just couldn't hang on to the sleeve. That's how hard she came.
Wow.
Yeah, she was, and too bad because Dan Erfurt owned the dog. Dan ended up breeding her to a dog named Taz that also was a Schutzhund 3, and he couldn't sell his puppies. Nobody would buy his puppies, and I was going to actually do a breeding with her, and he ended up spaying the dog.
Yes, I was reading about that. And for those that don't know, Lil is Turbo, out of Turbo, bred to Roxanne the Bandit. Roxanne the Bandit was out of Suregrip's Rattler and Fleming's Roxy. And that was a Bama Boy Sergeant Rock combo in with the Johnson dogs there. And now tell us about Turbo.
Oh, Turbo, very, very balanced dog. I mean, anybody can come up to the dog. No, the dog just had so much confidence about himself. Super looking dog. I guess he made grand champion or what so forth. He did end up getting a championship, and he ended Tom Ritchie put the BST on him, I believe. Very, very nice dog, just super, super temperament, and just a very nice dog.
So with Lil, you did her retrieve work, but your retrieve work caught the attention of somebody, and then they had you come and teach them. Tell us about that.
The retrieves I was teaching at the time, or I still do. I do the bird dog method retrieve, where the dog learns to hold your hand, and you put a glove on, and you place your hand in the dog's mouth, and they learn to hold on to your hand, and really, really calmly just make a little bit of pressure. Anyways, it's several times of those, and then you teach the dog with the toe hitch, and basically it's just the bird dog method retrieve. Lil was probably one of the best dogs I ever, that just learned so fast and so quick on doing the retrieves, that one day this guy came out from Belgium and was doing a seminar, and he seen Lil doing the retrieves, and he was so impressed by it that he said, "Oh, I must learn how to do this retrieve." I got a free trip to Belgium for showing him how to do the retrieves. I stayed there for 2 weeks in Belgium showing 2 dogs of his, and he ended up taking the Malinois to the championships, and he got second place at the championships with the dog. And he said, if I wouldn't have had those retrieves, because the dog had a real mouthy retrieve, and in Schutzhund, if your dog doesn't have a calm grip on the dumbbell, you lose a bunch of points.
Yeah, Bert won nationals in Belgium at a young age. What was it, like 15 years old?
15 years old, yeah, the youngest anybody's. I don't know to this day, but yeah, back then it was the 15-year-old kid winning a Schutzhund 3 competition level, national level.
Right, and another great story. And so looking down through here, you also were able to go to Billy Hines' kennel and work some dogs, and one of them being Country Boy. What did you think of Country Boy?
Country Boy, super structure on the dog, really, really nice structure. Everything that I would look for in a bulldog. Nice muscular body, good size head, everything, but he just didn't have that power that I prefer to see in for the bite work. I mean, just a nice big, nice white American Bulldog looking type. Yeah, more show type of dog.
Yeah, it's so great to hear someone with your background and knowledge actually talk and be able to expound upon Country Boy, and being that he was a great looking dog, and just how you feel about him. Thanks for that. You stepped away from the breed for a bit, and you stepped away. What caused you to do that?
Basically from the band, from the Bulldogs, I just kind of got over it. I was like, okay, I just want to get away from the Bulldogs and start with something else. So I ended up getting a Belgian Malinois, and that kind of erupted another paragraph or
Yeah.
for my abilities to do the sport.
Okay, so Troy, if I can interrupt for a moment, when he did get the Malinois Lestat was like a super dog and did super things. And since that dog, he hasn't come back to the American Bulldogs. You know, obviously American Bulldogs, Pit Bulldogs are not traditional working breeds. I always tell him, don't forget your roots. Don't forget your roots, because his roots are with the American Bulldog or the Bulldogs in general. But he had such a fabulous dog in Lestat. Predator and Ike too, don't get me wrong. But Lestat was an incredible dog. And I think he's had a couple Malinois since then, and they haven't come close.
Right. When I look at Lestat, it looked like in '99 he won USA Nationals.
Yeah.
First Malinois to do that.
First Malinois ever to win USA Nationals. He had perfect scores in obedience and protection. And his scores for that trial were 92, 100, and 100.
And let me interrupt for a moment. Troy, I'm not sure if you realize what USA, when we talk about USA regionals or USA nationals, that is a German Shepherd organization. DVG is an all breed, all traditional breeds. But USA is a German Shepherd breed. So for a Malinois to go in and earn that type of title or win, it's really huge. And Al and Lestat were the first ones to do that.
Yeah, you know, it seems like Al was a trendsetter.
He still
Led
is.
the way. I mean, he was a pioneer, but then an absolute trendsetter. And so who was the last AB that you had?
I believe it was a female that ended up passing away. I want to say it was Brindle Bruiser
Brindle
Bitch.
Babe?
No, Bruiser Bitch.
Oh, Bruiser Bitch. Okay.
Yeah, that was the last female. She ended up living up to like 12 years old or something like this.
And she was out of Woody and Miss Bully.
Yeah, Miss Bully.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so when we go down through here, just kind of recapping on a few things. Obviously, we learned tonight that Predator seemed to be your favorite. And would you say your most influential AB?
Not really. I definitely had a good whatchamacallit, I would say also he was pretty much identical. The only reason I ended up well, obviously Ike, I got offered some good money for Ike, and it was all right, it's time to sell him, and just one of those things. Both dogs were identical as far as my liking.
The big question, which was your favorite to train and title, Pred or Ike? I know Pred was your first.
Nah,
but
Ike was a lot easier to title.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did it in a year and a half's time, which Pred, it took me 3 years. So
But that was your first dog.
yeah, that was my first dog. But I definitely had a lot of drive coming, from him.
So as a sport dog, Ike, as a stud dog, and you're comparing the two and what they produced, what would you say from a stud dog factor?
Good question. I don't know. Pred he threw Ike, obviously. So, and he reproduced, himself, no problem. So yeah, I would say Pred in some ways.
Now, we talked about this, and Larry had brought it up earlier about you having the Predator semen. Do you have Ike semen as well, or is it just Predator?
I did, but I used it and it didn't take. It
Okay.
wasn't enough. Yeah. So
Okay.
I still have predator semen.
Now, with this semen, what are you hoping to accomplish? Do you want to own a female to use the semen with? Are you looking for an outside female that draws your interest? Are you looking at selling the semen outright? What does it take to get predator semen?
To this point right now, it's pretty much, I'm looking for a female to use for my personal use. I mean, I want it. If I do get another bulldog or I use it, it's for me, and that's how it's always been.
Right.
When I did the breedings, it was basically because it's my breeding.
And so to clarify, the female that the predator semen will be used on, are you looking to own that female, or is somebody else able to own the female and do the breeding with you and you take a pup out of it? Are you looking for a stud fee? What is it that you're looking for? What are the terms and conditions?
I'm looking for half the litter.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
because it's going to be something that I want a title.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
And how does this work? If somebody's interested, obviously you're going to want a tested female and a female that's worthy of the semen. Is it a dog that can somebody show you titles? Is it a dog that you want to work yourself? How does somebody impress you enough to be able to get this semen?
Basically, I'm looking at the lines for sure.
Mhm.
And as far as you know, it's just one of those things. I just got to test the female and see if she's capable. She don't have to be titled.
You gotta feel it.
Yeah, I gotta see if she's got the drive, the feeling for what I want. It's the temperament.
Absolutely. And so people, you've heard it straight from Al, what he's looking for. If you have it, reach out, get in contact, and let's show him some females. I want to see some of these dogs. I know I would sure like to have a predator pup, but it doesn't sound like I'll be getting one. Al wants half the litter, and that's, I think, a great deal, a great opportunity for someone to keep that blood alive and be able to go back to a dog, first Schutzhund 3 dog ever, who's produced Schutzhund 3 dogs. It's just an opportunity that does not come along at all. And so very cool. I'm glad that you were able to share that with us and come out and let people know that it's available. You know, I have some pictures here as we wrap things up here with you guys tonight. I have some pictures here that I'd like to go through. I meant to go through them as we were talking, and but I mean, the chance to see Al Banuelos on video, on live, I didn't want to detract by showing some pictures. So now we're going to go through some pictures here real quick. And if you guys have anything to say as we go through these pictures, please share with us. I'm going to wait and see if they pop up on the screen because I want to make sure that.
That's my baby's future daddy.
Yeah. Now,
so the owner of that little guy, Joe Fang, who owns Rizzo, he imported a little bitch from the Netherlands that I currently have that I'm loving. And it might be Rizzo's future wife.
yeah, what do you think about this? I love this photo, and as we go, we're gonna see pictures of Larry actually photographing a session with Al and this dog. I like this picture because it's one of probably the highest quality photos I've seen of Al working dogs out there, and just a great shot here. Now, here's Al with Nico.
Got Nico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anything to say about this?
Nico.
It's a great picture. That's Nico right there. That's the true bulldog defense power. I'm a badass dog. It's just showing the power, his whole way about what he was about.
Here we got Larry. Who's this dog, Larry?
That's Goose. That's
nice,
Goose.
nice. I love this photo. It's such a great photo. And so I had to include it in here. And another picture of Larry competing internationally, I believe here. This was this Italy?
That's in France.
Oh, France. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, wow.
Okay, so let me tell you the story about this little guy, Leo. He's a cool little guy, but I didn't do the training on him. Juan Mendoza is the trainer of him. I got him towards his retirement to use for my business, and he will live out his life with me and until the end. An incredible little dog, really, really neat dog.
Yeah, again, just you working with another breed, and a great photo here. Tell us about this one.
All right, so that's the doctor, Annetta Cheek, who is the breeder of Scud, Knockout's Patriot Missile. Al and I co-owned him. He went on to Schutzhund.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he was a little gun shy, so he was sold. But he came from a line of Schutzhund title dogs. He was a cool dog, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There it is.
Unfortunately, Steve's dog Hammer is a little bit cut off, but all the way to the right is Steve.
That's Steve with Hammer.
Dan Guerra, Judge Carol Patterson, myself, and Al with Ike.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's a photo I'd never seen before, and a great shot of Ike.
That was Al helping me with a whole lot of Rosie Schutzhund 3's tracking
Phenomenal dog.
before she was a 3. Yeah, we were working on it. Little Rizzo.
Yeah, here you are in the background, Larry in the background taking this shot, and Al doing what he does.
Mm-hmm.
That was Fred.
Fred. Leo.
That's Leo Miller. Yeah, he's still alive.
Leo.
That's a DVG judge right there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Leo was the owner of the club that Al and I, for quite a while, belonged to out in Fontana.
That's where I started at his club.
Mm-hmm. Leo and Millie Mueller. There's Steve.
All right,
And
this
Fred.
is Steve.
Yeah.
And Predator, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's when I earned the Schutzhund 3 with them.
Wow, very good, very good.
Nico.
We got Nico on here. It's a small picture, but this is the famous picture of Nico.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nico.
And again, one that we had showed. Like I said, this was going with our kind of our live session tonight. The photos were to coincide, but this I think it actually works better. And again, Nico and Al here.
Right.
Nice.
That's Sophie.
Sophie. She was a sweetie.
Just a beautiful American Bulldog. That's a beautiful dog.
That's right.
And Sophie lived with a young man and his 2 children and was a wonderful companion. Really good dog.
Here we go. We
Who's
got
that?
Ike here.
That's like,
Oh, look at
Yeah,
him there.
Yeah,
Wow.
this picture spoke to me, you know, being somebody who just immediately goes to conformation and structure and just the
I
beauty
like
of a
that.
dog and proportions. You see it here. Looks like at that time, you didn't really see a lot of well-structured ABs. If I look back at historical pictures going back, but you can tell in this picture, he was a very well put together dog.
He is gorgeous. Yeah.
that was a Johnson, pure Johnson female. And well, and then Woody being back there as well, you know, because that was Woody that was the Predator offspring.
Yeah, Woody was not known for his structure, but man, he produced some nice dogs. And you have him in great condition here, and he's just an eye-catching dog. Again, like I said, this is a photo we showed earlier. It was coinciding with, but this is another photo that Larry sent me that I had never seen before.
Right. That's Ike right there again. Oh,
Whoa.
is
Who's
that?
that? Is that? I think that's Moxie.
That is Moxie.
Yes.
It is?
At AWD.
Yeah,
Holy.
Arizona.
Okay.
that is
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
that is probably one of my favorite pictures I've ever seen. That is an incredible, incredible shot. Again, Moxie, Schutzhund 3, IPO 3, as it has it listed on the database. Tell us about this, Al. Tell us a little bit about you and bikes.
I basically, as a kid, I always rode bikes. I started racing motocross. Just loved riding bikes. I'm still riding to this day, and that was back in, I think 2017, that shot. So still
Yeah,
active.
another great photo. And this was just to break up the monotony of talking about dogs here. I know nobody's getting sick of the conversation that we're having tonight, but again, this was just to break it up a little bit and have you speak about your love of motocross.
Yeah.
Again, another picture with you and a shepherd here.
Yes. That dog actually, he came from Belgium. I remember. Just I was decoying that trial. That was at a trial that I was doing helper work.
You've gone to some places. Dogs have taken you some places. Where's some of your favorite places you've been to? You've been to Belgium.
I've been to Germany, Belgium, of course, all over the country here in the United States. I've especially doing the dog shows up at in North Carolina, down up in Fresno. Just yeah, dog world's been a great
Been blessing, huh?
blessing for me.
Absolutely. This is back now. I wanted to read this. This is from an event, and it says, "Meet our judges here." And you were judging scent work, and it says Al Banuelos, Santa Monica, California, has competed regionally and nationally with his American Bulldogs and is a pioneer for the breed. He is the first person to title an American Bulldog in the sport of Schutzhund, with Predator being a Schutzhund 3 FH. Like father, like son, Al then repeated that historic goal with Pred's son, Ike, Schutzhund 3 FH as well. Al has been training dogs, well, it's more than 15 years now, and has been very instrumental in assisting several regional and national competitors and champions in achieving their individual goals, as well as taking on the task of directly coaching several Bulldog enthusiasts to the Schutzhund 3 level. Al's experience is not limited to the bull breeds, although a breed he obviously excels at training. In 1999, at the USA National Championship in Reno, Nevada, Al pulled off another first for a breed, the Belgian Malinois, by being the first to ever earn a perfect score in obedience and protection. Again, just a nice tribute to Al Banuelos. This dog we have on the screen now is Fury, not Fury, but Turbo, yes. And Sergeant Fury, aka Turbo, and I was kind of slipping my brain there for a second. And so that was when we were talking about that. Here's the country boy that Al shared about working with. And we come to this point here. And again, this wasn't known by Al that we were going to do this. And we've had several breeders come on and do breeder spotlights, working kennels that go above and beyond. And we featured them, and we've created a Better Bulldog Bureau Hall of Fame. And to this point, it's just featured American Bulldogs that have done amazing things for our breed. And today, we're going to induct Al Banuelos as our first human into the Better Bulldog Hall of Fame.
Oh,
and I wanted to read something here that a buddy of mine shared with me, and also someone who knows Al, and that's Marcel. And so I'm going to be working through here just for a second to bring up what he shared with me and about Al. And thank you, Marcel, for doing that. And so Marcel went ahead and wrote, Al Banuelos. I can't think of an American Bulldog Hall of Fame without the name Al Banuelos being included. Al is a maverick in the American Bulldog world, taking a breed never known in the sport of Schutzhund and reaching level 3. He followed this up with a Predator son, Ike, and again reached level 3. Al's accomplishments with his Jaws of Stone American Bulldogs is the creation of the protection sport Bulldog. Al Banuelos paved the way for every breeder or handler today that has titled in sports like IPO, Schutzhund, French Ring, Mondial Ring, or PSA with an American Bulldog. You can't watch a BST without seeing his influence and vision with its creation through WABA. I personally would like to congratulate Mr. Al Banuelos on his induction into the American Bulldog Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And so Al, I cannot impress upon you how thankful we are for you doing this for us tonight. We got started a little bit late, but we've been going at this for a long time. And thank you for giving us a piece of your time and allowing us to interview you tonight and share great information with the rest of the breed. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
No, I mean, this is definitely a shocker for me. And thank you for having me for sure. Just and keeping me going. Now this kind of sparks up my feelings about going and doing something with an American Bulldog for sure. Definitely.
Absolutely. And, you know, I look forward to coming out to California here, coming up this spring, and going to see Marcel and Craig and go to a show up there in Bulldog. And I hope that one day our paths do cross. I hope to see some Predator pups, and we'll see what the future has in store for Al Banuelos, American Bulldogs, and Predator seamen. Again, I can't thank Marcel enough, Larry enough. You know, she's so gracious, and she was just like, let's make this about Al. And that just speaks volumes about who she is. And you have a great friend in Larry Hansen. And, you know, Larry and I, we're going to go ahead and talk. We've got our live session completely outlined, and she sent me a ton of photos. And I would like to just go ahead and just wanted to go ahead and again share a picture of Larry here and say thank you. And so more news to come on that upcoming live. And just Al, breeder, trainer, competitor, decoy, judge, mentor, breed advocate. He wore so many hats within the breed, and he's still doing the damn thing. So thank you, Al. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
And
Troy.
Thank you, Larry.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Bye.
Troy.
Good night.
Thank you.